Good afternoon. You may be aware that over 24 hours ago, I did not respond very well to the Trump administration posting a photo of the president attired like a king, as well as a message declaring that indeed he was the king. He did this when he attempted to undermine the duly elected laws of our state related to congestion pricing. I reference this again today for one reason. We fought a war 250 years ago to depose a king who tried to impose his will on a young country. We don't have a king today because it conflicts with the very genius of a democracy, where the voices and the votes of the people, not a king, not a queen, and not a governor, should prevail. Voters determine who they want or who they do not want to represent them in elective office. As I said last week, I was deeply troubled by the accusations leveled at Mayor Eric Adams, not just the initial indictment, but also the more recent allegation of a quid pro quo with the Trump administration. For days, I've been deeply involved in discussions with my closest advisors, city leaders, electeds, clergy, business, labor, civic leaders, all people whose opinions that matter to me because they care about our city. I consulted them and legal advisors on whether it's appropriate and necessary at this moment to exercise the power granted to me as the governor of the state of New York by the New York State Constitution and the City of New York Charter to remove a mayor from office. I've also heard from many voices of New Yorkers who feel outraged, who feel hurt, betrayed by what they have seen. And I want those New Yorkers to know I understand those feelings as well. After careful consideration, I have determined that I will not commence removal proceedings at this time. My strong belief is that the will of the voters and the supremacy and sanctity of democratic elections preclude me from any other action. I cannot deny the people of this great city the power to make this decision for themselves. And to those who conclude that this decision is due to pressure from many groups or individuals, I say this: you do not know me. Constant pressure is what I deal with all day long, and it's absolutely no bearing on any decisions I make. I will say this: I also have concerns about disruption and chaos that such a move, such a proceeding could bring to the residents of this great city. And those who argue just go and remove them fail to appreciate there is a process involved, due process, the length of the process, and the impact that such a process would have on this city. And actually, with the timing, it's not impossible that we'd have a scenario where there's multiple mayors of this city in the course of 1 year. But make no mistake, the current situation is one that I take very seriously. That's why I want to spell out my immediate objectives. Number one, to stabilize the city and restore calm. Number two, ensure that all services for our residents continue without disruption. And three, to take steps to make sure our leaders are operating only with the city's best interest in mind, unimpeded by any legal agreements with the Trump Justice Department. I want to be very clear. There are past examples of coordination and cooperation between the federal government, the city, the state. It's not uncommon. But there's a clear line between cooperation and coercion. Given how aggressive the Trump administration has been, including its attempt yesterday to dismantle a previously approved congestion pricing program, and how deeply disturbing the comments from the president's border czar were, we know they'll stop at nothing to try and exercise control over New York. That is the fight we had yesterday. That is the fight we have today. And that is the fight I'm willing to take on for the next 1,430 days. To move this city forward, I'm undertaking the implementation of certain guardrails that I believe are a first start in reestablishing trust for New York City residents, and ensure that all decisions out of City Hall are in the clear interests of the people of this city and not at the behest of the President. I'm proposing 3 immediate actions which I believe will help protect New Yorkers. First, I'm proposing legislation to create a special Inspector General for New York City affairs within the Office of the State Inspector General. The State Inspector General will be able to direct the New York City Department of Investigations. And the mayor will only be able to remove the Department of Investigations commissioner with the approval of the State Inspector General. This will protect the city's investigations from any interference, make sure that there's no lack of independence as they make their determinations, and allow the Inspector General to focus more directly on any improper activity that may arise out of New York City. They'll also give reports to us. We'll have access to information. Second, I'm proposing giving the city controller, the public advocate, and the New York City Council Speaker an independent authority to clarify the independent language to commence litigation against the federal government when necessary and using outside counsel. The city's law department will still have the opportunity to initiate legal actions within 7 days of any request, but the whole of city government should not be reliant on City Hall for legal cases where the people of the city may be under attack by the federal government. Third, I'm expanding funding for the Office of the Deputy State Controller General, Controller for City Oversight, because this stepped-up oversight, again, gives us an independent line of sight into potential decisions related to the federal government. This will be paid for by city receipts. Once these measures are enacted, they'll be effective immediately and expire at the end of 2025, subject to renewal. I've already discussed these proposals with the City Council Speaker and the Speaker of the State Assembly and the Majority Leader of the New York State Senate. I also told the mayor that strong managers need to be identified to fill the roles of the deputy mayors before they become vacant, and that we in my administration, with strong relationships that we have, will work to accomplish that goal and do whatever he can to keep his key commissioners. I want to take a moment to put this all in context. New York is facing a grave threat from Washington. The Trump administration has said is already trying to use the legal jeopardy facing our mayor as leverage to squeeze and punish our city. The president's already trying to weaken our public transit system and undermine our state sovereignty. I call it the Trump revenge tour, and I have to stand in its way. Not surprising, he's taking out his anger and frustration over the 35 felony convictions he received here in the state of New York, taken out on our own New Yorkers. And as governor, I will be the vanguard against harm to our state and our people, and nothing will stand in our way. But once I have made a decision, I execute it, work hard to make it work. And my decision today did not come lightly, but the path forward for me is clear. I will retain the powers conferred upon me by the New York State Constitution, the City Charter, but it is my sincere hope that these dark days will pass, elections will occur, and the people of New York will decide who they trust to govern this extraordinary city. And we can remain laser-focused and united against the storm clouds that are swirling 226 miles away in our nation's capital. My eyes are on the city, the state, and on Washington, and I'm ready and prepared to take on any fight against any threats to the well-being of our residents. Any questions?
Governor, hold on. We're going to do this in an orderly way. Let's start right here in front. You talked about the will of the people. The will of the people gave you the power to remove Adams. It seems like a little bit of an awkward workaround to use the power that the people have already given you.
So you're saying it's better to ignore the provisions in our Constitution that call for free and fair elections?
Can you just walk that out for my listeners?
No, we have elections in our country and in our state. It's what separates us out from places where they do actually have kings and dictators. This is something I take very seriously. And it is up to the voters of this great city to determine who they want to continue as their leader or bring in a new leader. It is up to them. That is a sacred right that they have, and I will not deny them that.
Ben?
It sounded like you've spoken to the mayor. Are you confident he'll choose experienced professionals as opposed to sort of combative loyalists like Kaz Daughtry, who we've reported was up with Deputy Mayor of Public Safety? And if you could all characterize your conversations with him, what did he say? How did he feel about these proposed changes?
You can ask him how he feels about these proposed changes, but I explained that this is an opportunity to install safeguards that we need to have in place to give people confidence that there's only one factor in every decision that's made, and that's what's best for the people of the city. And he has to earn that, and there's an opportunity to do that. I also have a strong team here. They have incredibly tight relationships with the mayor's team. And that constant communication is part of why was a stabilization of the situation last fall and why that's what we're shooting for right now. So he's offered to work with us if we have recommendations on people, et cetera. But I want to make sure that the commissioners stay as well.
Have you recommended people?
It's early.
Bernadette?
Governor, so do you think that the mayor should resign in his own? And if not, do you think he has lost the ability to govern?
It is up to an individual to decide if they want to leave from office at any time.
You don't think he should?
No, you did not phrase my answer correctly. It is not up to me to tell them to leave. It is up to an individual if they want to resign the office to which they've been elected.
Do you think that he's lost the ability to govern?
I am working to put in safeguards to restore the trust that is necessary to get this city back focused out of all this controversy and get people in New York City what they want. They just want normalcy again, and that's what I'm fighting to restore.
Ally in the back?
So at this point, is removing the mayor from office off the table?
I use the phrase "at this time."
So you may revisit it at some point?
I will never surrender power that I have.
Is there anything that could happen coming out of the court hearing that would change your mind?
I'm not going to say at this time. I need to see what the court happens, but I also, as I said, it is my duty as the governor of this state to make sure I'm aware of what's going on, that if there's problems, that I intercede, but otherwise these are duly elected officials who have jobs to do as well.
Mark in the back?
Governor, the mayor and Tom Homan had discussed putting ICE back in Rikers. So with all these provisions that you're putting forward, would that stop that? What position would you take and what would you do to either allow that or stop that or any of the moves that they've planned or hammered out between the two of them?
This becomes a question of whether or not that complies with the city charter and city ordinances, and that's something I will be watching.
Do you want that to happen?
Melissa?
Listen.
Governor, you mentioned that this is subject to renewal at the end of 2025. What is the reason for that, and what situation would necessitate you continuing this past, potentially the mayor's term?
Ask me at the end of December 2025.
Matt?
Governor, the mayor has not answered any questions in the past few weeks about any of this stuff. He hasn't addressed the public recently. Do you think that he should answer questions and be held more accountable, and would that ease New Yorkers' fears?
I'm not his communications director. If he wants to do more interviews, get out there with the people, I encourage him to just do the job.
Does he owe it to New Yorkers to do that?
It seems to me he gets asked a lot of questions by all of you. I will say this. It is most important, and I discussed, let's focus on public safety. What we're doing in the subways is extraordinary. Crime is down. Our plans to have more police is working overnight. Let's close more illegal cannabis shops. Let's get the city of Yesh jump-started. Let's start making progress here, build more housing. We have so much to do in this city. I want to just move here, but I'm not taking my eyes off the situation. I want you to know that. My eyes are still on the situation.
Yeah, in the back?
Is this new procedure, Governor, have to be reviewed by the legislation?
That's a good question. It would have to be home rule. home rule decision that the city council would propose, and then that has to be approved by the state legislature. Yes, and I've had conversations with the two leaders already.
How long is it gonna take to be,
I don't set their timetable, but I said it'd be effective immediately once it's passed. So that's up to the city council to take the first step, then it'll go up to the legislature, which will be in session again shortly.
Vaughn?
I just want to be clear that these proposals would only be in place for 2025. And in addition to that, how much has the potential entry of former Governor Cuomo into the mayoral race weighed on how you proceed in this issue?
0.
And on this would only apply in 2025?
Subject to renewal.
Morgan?
Governor, if former Governor Andrew Cuomo if he somehow wins the election, is this something you would think about continuing?
I will look at the facts at the end of the year and determine what's best for the city. These are put in place as an extraordinary measure at this time. I understand that. Not since the 1970s with Mayor Abe Beame and Governor Hugh Carey, when there was a crisis that required that level of intervention. We are taking a number of steps that give us line of sight into budgetary matters, investigative matters, and legal matters to ensure that there's no area where any decisions can be compromised. That's what is necessary to give people the confidence to know that the right decisions are being made. And the mayor has to take the time to rebuild the trust with the people of this city. Those should go toward establishing people's understanding that there is other entities, the state of New York, is keeping an eye on the situation.
Chris?
Thank you. Governor, since all of this is contingent on legislation, have you lined up sponsors yet in both the state legislature and the council? And on the council side, I've already spoken to multiple council members who are expressing discontent about you kind of punting to them. If you genuinely believe that there is concern about the mayor's ability to lead, why punt to another body? Is there nothing you can do by executive power to restrict what's going on?
You know, it's not surprising there's difference of opinion in the city council. There'll be difference of opinion up in the state legislature. It is the normal course of business. I have spoken to leadership of both the city council, the speaker, also spoken to Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins and Speaker Kyle Heastie. It is a new concept to them. This is an extraordinary measure. I acknowledge that. I don't expect me to propose it today and it becomes law tomorrow. It takes some time for people to understand what's behind it and to have questions, and that's what a democracy is all about. So I am not ramming this down anyone's throat. I'm saying I believe this is a place we can go to reassure New Yorkers that the fears that I've heard from many of them will be unfounded because we have some systems in place. That's what I'm trying to do, just try to stabilize the situation and calm it down.
There's no specific sponsors lined up?
Well, since I'm just talking about it today, I've not taken the steps to line them up at this time, but
What's plan B if this
burn it out, I'll cross that when I get to it. I'm trying to deal with what is a crisis situation. I have other things going on across the state as well. I'm going to focus on this, and I need to be able to move on knowing that there's systems in place. But I will work hard to help them understand that this is not a power grab. I don't need to do this. I'm busy enough as governor, but I'm also not going to turn a blind eye to a situation that has put our city and our state in the national spotlight in a way that has been very negative. And I just want us to get back to a place where people feel confident again and we stop being talked about all over the national news channels. We have to get this situation under control.
Rebecca?
The council obviously is one issue. What is your sense of whether this will pass in the legislature? There's still two other bodies that need to be taken into account. And how long do you think this is going to take? We have a mayoral primary in June, and we've got the budget coming up as well. So what kind of timeline are we looking at?
Now, I'd like to start the proceedings immediately and then start talking to the legislature about this. I'm not waiting till after any elections. There's a crisis of confidence now. These are steps to try and move past that, to put safeguards in place. I want to work with our legislators who I also believe would have the same objective of allowing the 8.3 million people who occupy this great city, let them have some peace of mind to know that we're moving on, but with our eyes on the situation. That's what's most important.
And is there any concern that the mayor himself will try to veto a home rule message passed by the council?
I believe the council would have the 2/3 vote if they wanted to. I mean, again, home rule, when you asked about the legislature as well, we have a lot of deference to home rule requests. When I was in local government, I had to put in home rule requests. There's a lot of deference to that. That's our system of government here. But anybody else want to comment on home rule?
Yeah, there are two ways for a home rule message to be enacted. One is with the mayor's sponsorship with 50%, a majority of the council. And if the mayor is not involved, then it's a 2/3 vote in the council.
All right, last one, Gwen.
You said earlier this week that you had serious concerns about the long-term future of the administration. Has Mayor Eric Adams done or said anything in the past week that has given you new confidence in his leadership?
I have found a path forward that I believe gives me confidence with having this system in place, a line of sight into budgetary matters, investigatory matters, as well as legal matters. And this is what gives me the confidence to know that there is a system in place of checks, if you will. But I also do not want to be running the city of New York. The mayor needs to have a team in place, restore the confidence of people that there's competent government being delivered. This is not a move for me to say, I want to be the mayor of New York. I love being the governor of New York. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're hearing Governor Kathy Hochul saying she wants to get this situation under control, announcing she's implementing these guardrails to reestablish trust for New York City. She's talking to New York State lawmakers, saying at this point she does not plan to remove Mayor Eric Adams.
No, we are taking very strong steps to shut down what is basically a wildcat strike. The union itself does not condone this. We've been working closely with union leadership. I've instituted a number of measures to ensure that the prison population, the existing guards who I praise them for showing up and doing their jobs. I truly do. These are tough, tough jobs, but also the incarcerated individual population as well as administrators. My job is to protect them, so we've brought in the National Guard to make sure that we're not short-staffed. We also have more being deployed if necessary. Started mediation as well to talk about their concerns and how we can deal with the fact that there is a severe shortage of people who want to be corrections officers in our state. That is a statement of fact, and that has become very challenging for us. So, we want to, as soon as we get this under control, it'll be restored, but I'll let the Commissioner Bray?
So once we believe that the situation is under control, we are already in conversations with several different facilities and their local representatives about returning to work. We are hoping to see that continue through this afternoon and this evening. But we do have National Guard in place, but until we have our full contingent of correction officers, visitation will be suspended until we are sure that it is safe for both the visitors, the incarcerated individuals, and the correction officers.
Thanks, everybody.
I also want to say, it was sickening to hear the descriptions of the charges being brought against corrections officers at the Marcy Correctional Institution for an assault and murder that occurred in the first week of December. I went to the site. I was in the room where the murders and attacks occurred. It was shocking to know that this had gone on. And if it wasn't for some body cameras, who knows if we would have known about it. At the time, began suspension and termination proceedings against these individuals. I also called for a complete culture study to find out what's going on. We're bringing in outside experts from other states. We also made sure that there's body cameras that cannot be turned off. But I want to thank the special prosecutor, deputized by the Attorney General, the Onondaga District Attorney, for the thoughtful approach he took to this. It was lengthy. I know there was a lot of impatience, especially from me, to make sure that justice was served for the family of Mr. Brooks. But today will hopefully be a chapter restoring the faith of people, that when people cross the line, when people engage in such horrific acts, that there are severe consequences. Thank you.